Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. Stakeholders and prospective stakeholders in this year's Carey Festa 13 have raised a number of concerns about the event, which takes place in August. During a town hall meeting to engage Barbadians, officials from the National Cultural Foundation are confident they have the answers and are working to make sure the premier Caribbean festival runs smoothly. However, it seems making sure the festival stays Caribbean could be a tough pill for some to swallow.
From artists, craftsmen and singers to guest house and private property owners, all gathered at the Queen's Park Steel Shed to gain some clarity on how they can carve out a role in this year's Carey Festa 13. It's all in a bid to take advantage of the opportunities which will be on offer when thousands of people come to our shores this August. Although the turnout was modest, the meeting was attended by a diverse group of stakeholders. Program coordinator for Carey Festa, Kim Butcher, says the country can expect 3,000 artists and artisans in areas such as the visual, culinary and performing arts, just to name a few. And she says the benefits to local businesses will be tremendous.
A number of our delegations are going to be staying at hotels, guest houses, and bed and breakfasts. They'll be using our transportation system, taxi operators and minibuses, and a number of them will be shopping in our supermarkets or retail stores, bars and restaurants.
During the meeting, a number of concerns were raised about spaces for literary artists to share their work and about whether networking spaces would be available for persons to collaborate and share ideas. Of particular concern to one popular toy vendor was whether he would be able to offer his products for sale even though they were made outside of the region. However, Festival Director Andrea Wells made it clear that there is no space for products manufactured outside of the region at Carey Festa. In fact, she says a doll maker from Bermuda will be at the festival, showcasing toys made with dried banana leaves.
She's going to be offering a workshop for children and one for adult doll makers who are in the island in this. And the idea? Right, and the idea is there's a transfer of knowledge and ideas, and coming out of this, I'm sure other people will start saying, wow, I never considered that. Let me start making things using more of bananas, which we have enough banana leaves, dried leaves here too. So that is the purpose for the festival, and in order to make sure that our artists get the best possible market, that is why we have to put certain limitations.
The region's premier arts festival will feature a grand market, Buyers Shopping Mall, a special Carey Festa symposium, and 2 super concerts. Buyers are expected to be coming in from America, the United Kingdom, South America, and possibly South Africa to take a look at local film, clothing, and other items on offer. NCF officials say opportunities are still available for Barbadians to showcase their skills, as well as for volunteers to assist at the various events. And they're calling on Barbadians to keep coming forward to make sure Carey Festa is one of a kind. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thanks very much, Kareem. Well, in direct opposition to comments made by Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe, the Canadian High Commissioner in Barbados is calling for same-sex relations to be made legal. Again, we hear from Kareem Smith.
Although ministers of government have made it a topic of controversy in recent days, Canada is taking a clear position on how it feels about the decriminalization of same-sex relations. And today, the lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender community's rainbow-colored flag flew high. Canadian High Commissioner Marie Legault made the declaration as her country celebrates May 17th as International Day Against Homophobia. The event was attended by officials from the U.S. Embassy, the British High Commission, the Barbados Commonwealth Society, and outspoken director of the Barbados Gays Lesbians Against Discrimination, Donya Pigott. Ms. Legault expressed disappointment that Barbados continues to hold on to anti-sodomy laws imposed by the British Empire during colonial times.
Although I have been told a few times, including by the Attorney General, that in Barbados, the anti-burglary law is not enforced. The fact remains that it is a criminal offense, and as such, it is even used to blackmail or extort money from members of the LGBT community.
Making direct reference to an apparent difference in opinions between Environment Minister Dr. Dennis Lowe and Commerce Minister Donville Innes, she lauded the latter's stance of encouraging tolerance among all. She says it's this lack of tolerance that continues to destroy communities.
whether they are accepted and supported by their family, friends, and community, or not, will have a huge impact in their life, and the life they will lead, and how they will contribute to society in the future. I truly believe that the world can be a better place if we embrace our diversity, rather than if we let fear of this diversity overcome us and drive our actions.
The topic of same-sex relations continues to cause division among many in society. And the Canadian High Commissioner admits that even within her office, different opinions prevail. However, she says as long as respect remains the guiding principle, everyone should be free to hold their own opinion on the topic. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
In the near future, Barbados and other Caribbean countries could have standards for solar water heaters and a variety of energy-related appliances. Tristan Ward tells us more.
The development of standards for energy-related appliances comes as a number of policymakers, standards and energy experts meet here in Barbados for a major workshop that will help them to assess the benefit of standards and labeling programs. It is being held as part of the Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Project, put in place by the CARICOM Regional Organization for Standards and Quality. Head of the regional project team, Dr. Erwin Edwards, says the standards will give average consumers something simple to look at from which they can make informed decisions about energy products. He also highlighted how the commercial sector stands to benefit.
When a client has the decision to make, should I invest $1 million in a solar water heater for my 500-room hotel? If they have standards that can guarantee them the level of workmanship going into the equipment, the level of performance we can expect coming out of it, it gives them more comfort when they go to invest that $1 million.
Dr. Edwards says the standards will also aid in the sustainable development of Caribbean states. The project is partnered by the German National Metrology Institute.
Most of us, with the exception of Trinidad and Tobago, import oil. That's a pretty big foreign bill for us to pay every month or every quarter or however we pay for it. So that anything that we can do to educate our public, to help them to make decisions that will stay well for them going forward in a sustainable manner, then that is very, very important.
Consultant Ulrich Herms-Littke says the workshop is critical to the development of the standards.
This moment is also quite special for the project because it's one of the major activities what we are rolling out to establish the ground for working in energy efficiency, and this is about standard.
The project team is hoping to have the standards within the next 6 months so they can be presented to member states. Tristan Ward.
Employers should get into the habit of rewarding employees who display excellent work performances. The suggestion from Executive Director of the Productivity Council, John Pilgrim. He believes it would encourage a worker's productivity.
But the public sector department is given $15 million to operate, and it has goal A, B, and C, and it has achieved all those goals, and in the process, they save $200,000. Why not come up with a program that would allow part of those savings to be shared with the workers? I think it's that kind of thinking and culture that we want to have evolve. The statutory corporations that have incentive schemes across the private sector, they have incentive schemes where workers receive a base pay, and at the end of the financial year, they receive some bonus payment. Why not have that as part of the life of public sector institutions?
Well, speaking at the launch of a productivity training program hosted by the National Housing Corporation, Mr. Pilgrim says employers need to find out what motivates employees. He added that the seminar will give managers insight on how they can get employees more active in the workplace. However, Mr. Pilgrim says that non-pecuniary rewards are also necessary.
You could give workers days off, you could give them somebody says certificates of things. People say that's not a thing, but yeah, but that means something for workers. You can give people tickets, you could give people vouchers, you could give people workers plaques of appreciation on Independence Day where we have our thing, get workers who in the public sector who would have performed well come to the podium and shake hands with the Prime Minister. That means something to workers. What you're saying to workers that we may not be able to give you as much cash-wise as possible, But from a practical perspective, where we recognize your contribution to the growth and development of the organization and the achievement of the institution's goal, we are going to reward and recognize you.
So here's a question for all of you parents. How much damage can social media do to your child? One ICT official suggests it can be devastating. Parents of students of the Charles F. Broome Primary were brought up to date of the dangers as the Optimist Club of Barbados Central expanded its cybersecurity program for primary schools. Past president of the Information Systems Security Association, Charles Walton that is, told parents social media, aside from being used to communicate with friends, is used by crooks and child molesters. He notes often people post fake pictures on their accounts and are able to communicate with children at their level. Mr. Walton wants parents to be vigilant and encouraged young children to always let their mothers and fathers know their sign-in credentials.
As kids, we know that most of the children are very, very adept at using the technology, yes. But when it comes to the legal side of things, and sorting out the messes that they may find themselves in, they don't know how to do that. And we say to them, when you let your parents know these things, then anything happens to you, it means that we can go into your account and we can track and we will be able to source some evidence and some information that will give us some kind of idea as to what has been happening in terms of your communications, who you've been talking to, that would give us some lead in terms of tracking you should anything happen to you.
Mr. Walton adds young people are into amassing likes on their pictures and caution children against adding people they do not know online.
We need to be very careful about that behavior, otherwise we can find ourselves in trouble. As we said before, we always tell them, well, as children you are good at technology, adults are better at dealing with the bullies, the criminals, and the police as well. And most of us should be able to spot the scams a lot easier than our kids. But it's going to require us taking the time and effort to become more fair with some of these things so that we are able to be in that position.
The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union is preparing itself in the event there is any docking of teachers' pay from any meeting it calls. It held a meeting yesterday at Solidarity House to discuss several areas of concern. The BSTU also gave an update about matters relating to 3 of its members who it says were unfairly dismissed. In the meantime, President of the union, Mary Ann Redmond, says investigations are underway about a gun magazine that was found at the Commonwealth School.
There is much unease in relation to that situation, and the union now has to engage in some investigations now and see to what extent we can assist the handling of this matter to the benefit of teachers and students in the school.
Coming up after the break, we'll tell you about plans to amalgamate 2 local energy agencies.
I believe I'll be at Soul Ultimate Gospel in association with Life 97.5 FM on Saturday, May 27th, dancing and praising the 25th year of Barbados Gospel Fest with Jonathan Nelson and Charles Jenkins. Get your ticket for Soul Ultimate Gospel in association with Life 97.5 FM at Kensington Oval for a time of Thanksgiving.
He can move mountains.
Tickets, $50 advance, $60 at the door. VIP $140.
When I first heard of the Power of Choice campaign by Mr. Griffith at a prefect seminar, my prefect had a couple of weeks back, and the message that stuck in my head was, I am responsible for my every thought, word and action, and even my feelings. That message stuck in my head because no one, absolutely no one, can control how you think, what you do, what you say, or even how you feel.
work to amalgamate the National Petroleum Corporation and the Barbados National Oil Company Limited has started. And Minister in the Prime Minister's office, Senator Darcy Boyce, says they're hoping the process will be completed by year end, and government is working with the employees and the unions to ensure it is done right. Mr. Boyce, who has responsibility for energy matters, says already the two companies have started sharing service agreements to help with efficiencies and to cut costs. He was speaking in the upper chamber on the National Petroleum Amendment Bill 2017.
You've got two companies with some differences and we're trying to bring together. We have to make sure that we do it in a way that is fair to all the workers. We have to do it in a way that the unions and ourselves agree upon. We have to do it in a way that causes no disruption to the supply of fuel into the country.
We'll hear some more from Senator Boyce later in the business report. Although he supports a plan to increase rates for natural gas in Barbados, Senator Alwyn Adams hopes it will only be a modest one. The independent senator says the National Petroleum Corporation cannot continue to supply natural gas at the current rates, but at the same time, customers cannot afford any massive increases.
I believe that given the fact that we are moving away from fossil fuels, that steps are made to shift the burden to renewables, and that the renewables will bring the price down eventually, that the sacrifice that is being asked now for better conditions in the future, I believe, Madam President, that they're worthwhile.
Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Senator Jepter Ince, supports the bill, saying the effort to diversify the energy sector is a forward-thinking move by the government.
And this Democratic Labour Party administration, Madam President, we are taking the necessary action to carry Barbados forward, to create the type of environment that is necessary for a viable economy. We have heard the criticisms from varying places. We have heard that the initiatives taken are not going to benefit the people of Barbados, but sometimes it is important that you allow vision and patience to work together. And this is what this Democratic Labour Party is all about.
Meantime, the opposition Barbados Labour Party's representative in the Senate accepts that the rates for natural gas have to be increased, but he says now is not the time to do it. Senator Wilford Abrams is also concerned that the legislation gives the power to set new and future rates to the minister with responsibility for the sector. The senator says government has also not said how much the rates will increase by, nor have they outlined any real plans for the use of the excess money that will be collected.
How much money is the government looking to collect in the first tranche, in the first go, in the first 5 years? There must, Madam President, we're not here in a vacuum. For us to come at this point in time, the authorities from the natural gas company would have had to wade in and advise the minister. The government is not going to act. I hope the government is not acting ill-advised or with no advice at all. So the minister must know what is the proposed rate increase we're looking at. A lot of the anxiety that people might face in hearing this debate and wondering how much is it going to go up by can perhaps be allayed by Senator Boyce playing one more card.
With less than 2 weeks to go before the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season, the Telecommunications Unit is working closely with emergency management officials to plan for disasters, both natural and man-made. The revelation from Deputy Chief Telecommunications Officer Clifford Bostic. He was speaking during an exhibition in Hero Square to mark World Telecommunications and Information Society Day. There were several booths on display to raise public awareness, and while there has been little opportunity to apply the theory in real-life situations, officials will get the chance to prepare for disasters during next month's exercise Trade Winds.
We've been having discussions with the Barbados Defence Force, where we met with them twice at least, and we're meeting with them again next week, because we want to make sure that when Trade Wind starts, that we are ready to participate. This is how we can test our system live, basically, in a controlled environment. From that exercise, we will have some useful information to feed back into our plan to see how we need to make changes going forward.
There's news from the region still to come. Stay with us.
Diamond Dazzler, it's time to play. Diamond Dazzler, the new instant $250,000 scratch game from the Barbados Lottery. Available at select lottery outlets.
Kingsley Store, your furniture and appliances store on Roebuck Street, welcomes you to come and purchase top quality items at great and affordable value. Come to Kingsley Store and see our locally crafted furniture. Check out Kingsley Store's small and large appliances, fridges, stoves, washing machines, blenders, irons, and so much more. Come get your single or double divans, pine beds, mahogany finished bed heads, and wardrobes. Let's go to the Kingsley Store, your furniture store on Roebuck Street. Our friendly staff is eagerly waiting to assist you.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has cut short his official trip to the Dominican Republic to return home to assess damage brought on by heavy rains. Over the weekend and up to yesterday evening, the island was experiencing persistent heavy rains, and those rains were associated with a trough system. It flooded several communities and in some cases washed away bridges and roads. While there were no reports of deaths, dozens of people had to be rescued. Clarendon was the hardest hit parish. The community of Annan Town was inundated with up to 17 feet of raging waters. Still in Jamaica, the Ministry of Agriculture is developing a forecasting system designed to boost measures to control the beet army worm. Deputy Research Director at the ministry, Michelle Sherwood, says the system, being developed with support from the Food and Agriculture Organization, is one of several strategies being undertaken by the ministry. It uses temperatures from the Met Office to tell when the beet army worm will be at the various stages in the field. She says this will better enable the ministry, through the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, to prepare farmers to combat the worm's onset. Over to St. Lucia now. The Civil Service Association is alleging that attempts to usurp its representation of WASCO employees have been thwarted. Last week, WASCO employees reportedly voted overwhelmingly to retain the organization as their bargaining body.
Last week, CSA's Assistant General Secretary Max Stephen Overton took to the media to lament what he believed was the practice of poaching by a sister trade union. Overton disclosed that the union in question was attempting to have the daily paid WASCO employees switch representation. Speaking to News Force Tuesday, he noted that this supposed plan was foiled when the workers, through a decertification exercise, chose to remain with the island's largest public sector trade union. He says the CSA was informed sometime in February of the circulation of a petition indicating that the employees no longer wanted representation from the bargaining body.
When we did our investigations, we found out that it was because of some transaction which took place at WASCO, which more or less placed our members at a disadvantage. So the members were concerned, and at the same time, this petition was going around. So some of them appended the signatures. But when we brought them together at two meetings, one in Castries and one in Wilford, and explained the situation to them and explained to them what we had been doing since news broke of whatever happened, they indicated to us that they in no way had any interest whatsoever in breaking ties with our union.
The CSA advised them that the best way to deal with this matter was to abstain from participation in the decertification poll, which was scheduled for last Friday. As Overton explains, they did not disappoint.
True to form, the majority of our members, 100 plus, did not vote, And of the 49 which voted, we still got a majority stating that they wish to remain with the CSA.
Oscar Lopez Rivera, the Puerto Rican nationalist and one of the longest-serving political prisoners in U.S. history, has been released from house arrest in Puerto Rico. Lopez Rivera was sentenced to 55 years in prison in 1981 for his involvement with a Puerto Rican group that claimed responsibility for dozens of bombings in New York, Chicago, Washington, and Puerto Rico in the 1970s and 80s. Supporters of the 74-year-old who spent 35 years in prison are also expected to honor him next month in New York City's massive Puerto Rican Day parade. Lopez Rivera was placed under house arrest after former U.S. President Barack Obama commuted his sentence before leaving office in January. There has been a campaign to free Lopez Rivera over the years, drawing support from representatives here in Barbados, Pope Francis, and former U.S. President Jimmy Carter.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you by CIBC First Caribbean.
A peek into the world of sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.